Okay, good afternoon. We are live and welcome to day one of our Vote Local, Get Educated Week of Action. I'm Lisa Hollenbach and I am a community manager, a content manager at Education Post. And as a former social studies teacher, I might get just a little too excited about elections. And if you believe the pundits right now, this election is the most important in human history, right? But it's really difficult to kind of cut through the noise, especially with the national elections. So whether you're excited or exhausted or simply uninspired by this election, what we'd like to do is shine a light on the local elections and on the issues that really matter and the voices in our communities who have something to say and help people to get educated and to vote local. So today we have a few amazing panelists here to talk about some issues that are impacting their communities right now and what happens when every family votes. So I'm going to turn it over to them first to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about themselves, and what it is that they're doing right now. So first I'll turn it over to Khulia.
Hi, my name is Khulia Pringle. I am the Minnesota delegate for the National Parent Union here in Minnesota. Well, nationally, again, I'm also a brightbeam activist. And then here in Minnesota, I'm a family advocate with the Minnesota Parent Union. And it's nice to be here.
Thank you, Khulia. Thank you for being here. And next, Wendy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wendy Gonzalez-Neal. I am the Texas delegate for National Parents Union, and as well as I'm the executive director and founder of My Child, My Voice, a nonprofit organization based in Houston, Texas. And I am so excited to be here to talk about my favorite thing, voting.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Wendy. And finally, Maritza.
Good afternoon. My name is Maritza Guridy, the Pennsylvania delegate for the National Parents Union, also a parent advocate, and very excited to be here.
Thanks so much, Maritza. So you ladies are doing some fabulous work out there, both in your schools and communities, with elevating parent voice in those communities, which we love to hear about here, and also to get out the vote. So Khulia, I'll bring it back to you. And if you could tell us just a little bit about what's inspiring you to be active and to vote local this election season. What's happening in your community?
There are a lot of things happening. Parents are frustrated. They're frustrated pre-COVID, but COVID has compounded the issue when it comes to highlighting or shining a brighter light on the disparities that had already existed, but are really exacerbated now because of COVID. You have a lack of education support, childcare, the digital divide, lack of support for children with special education. Our families who don't speak English as a first language at home aren't getting the support that they need. There's a whole host of issues that parents are frustrated about, and they are fired up and they are ready to get and vote and start putting people in place or keeping people in place that will advance and make sure that the public education system truly works for all kids.
Right, right. And we've been hearing a lot of the similar things coming from all around the country. And I know that you've been involved in a little bit in the Internet for All campaign. What have you been doing with regard to that to get kids connected in your community?
Initially, what I had to do is what I do as an organizer. Once I, tried to go the normal route through the system and the system's wall was up, I had to figure out for myself, how was I going to help get families the technology, the internet, and the learning space that they needed for their children to make sure that they could access distance learning. And so I found a bomb Black woman who was doing it on her own. Her name is Eni Augustine, and she formed a project called Project Nandi. And she sought some funding, and the National Parent Union also gave us a grant with the coalition that we formed together. It's about 6 of us Black women that we were helping our communities out in different ways, whether it was the internet, essential items, food, advocacy, one-on-one support. We pooled our resources together And along with the grant that we received from National Parent Union, we were able to actually provide technology to students, make sure that they had the reliable internet that they needed, and then to make sure that the learning space that they were in was also geared towards them. I also did a rally in front of Comcast. I called the people at Comcast, spoke to them, spoke to Minneapolis Public School District, spoke to their foundation, spoke to the senators nationally for my state, spoke to representatives and the state legislators. I'm just short of speaking to the mayors of my city, but I have been doing everything in my power to make sure that kids or parents' voices and kids truly have access to the technology that they need, and that they have reliable internet, not just any internet, but reliable internet, because every child is guaranteed free public education, and parents should not have to have any cost burdens when it comes to access and distance learning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if we didn't know the disparities before, right, COVID really helped to highlight for us who had access and who didn't, all the tools that they needed, for their education. And, when when you're talking to the average person, I was talking a little bit as we were preparing for this week, and I said, I have family members, my dad will call me on the phone and say, who should I vote for this cycle? Who are these people that I don't know? When we're talking to regular folks, moms and dads who really are concerned with how things are happening, or, the average person who really does care about education, what do they need to know about the choices that they're making at the ballot box that can impact some of these things, like school response to COVID and whether or not kids have access to all of the materials and the internet that they need?
They need to know everything. We were just talking about, when it comes to candidates, we really shouldn't be just voting along party lines. We should be looking at the candidates, looking at the issues that they're talking about. If they're an incumbent and they've been in office, where do they stand? What's their record? How did they vote? How did they vote previously in previous during legislative cycles? They should be paying attention to everything. And we at the Minnesota Parent Union, we do everything we can, because most of the work that I do, I try to go out to communities where I know there's a true information gap, and whatever's happening is not getting filtered down to certain types of people. So we make sure that we do candidate forums in low income housing, in schools with students, where the schools are supposed to be low performing. We bring the candidates to where the people are, instead of expecting that people are just going to figure out on their own, who these candidates are, what their issues are, and what their platform is. So it's just not incumbent on me. It's incumbent on these candidates and these parties that want people to vote and people to participate, to make sure that they're not just, they want people to just vote. No, you have to come to people. You're going to have to, provide childcare. You're going to have to provide food. You're going to have to make sure that it's in multiple languages. Yeah, you're going to have to make the extra mile if you truly want to engage every family and make sure that they vote.
It's so true.
Absolutely. That's so important. I've heard that call echoed over and over again about candidates need to show up and need to make sure that people can hear their message. And they've got to do what it takes to earn your vote, right? And so many of our candidates, local or otherwise, they just aren't doing that. So Khulia, how does this then build a bridge between your local community activist work and the work that you're doing with National Parents Union?
So when I got chose to be the Minnesota delegate on the National Parent Union Council, Carrie so graciously just sort of knew all of our personalities, and just sort of she placed me on the Every Family Votes, which was a natural fit for me, because as I've done since I started organizing, and I too am a previous social studies teacher, so I get real fired up when it comes to civic engagement stuff, and I was doing that as a teacher. And there's a local activist that I worked with. I met her as a parent at the school, and she was just so involved. And she was also doing voter engagement at the school. So me and her would work together on how we would get the students to be involved in, voting and going to the Capitol and doing candidate forums. And so it was just natural for me, because I knew at this point, if I really wanted to leverage parent power when I'm doing my organizing, there's no way we can't do it without paying attention to who's governing the system. So every time I've done something with organizing, I've always had some type of voter education as a part of what I do. And so when I got put on the committee, I went to the same lady. I'm like, hey, I'm on the voting committee now. I need your help. And she helped us with our toolkit. So on the National Parent Union's website, on the Every Family Votes link, there's a toolkit, and it's geared for parents, organizers, organizations, churches, anybody who wants to engage and know how to organize their community around the whole voter participation role, not just voting, but how do you educate yourself about the candidates? How do you hold a candidate forum? What are the questions are you supposed to ask for? How do you look for their record? There's a whole host of information that helps the average person really just get down into the nitty-gritty and participating in making sure that their elected officials, that the potential elected officials align with their issues.
That's amazing. I know I feel some days that it's just a fire hose of information coming at me, and a lot of it is surface level, but you're really providing stuff that busy moms and dads can use right now to help them make their way through this electoral process and figure out who's doing the best work for their communities. They're the people they need to vote for, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks so much. And Wendy, I'm going to bump over to you, and you've been doing work, great work with the National Parents Union for some time now. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing, and a little bit about the Every Parent Votes campaign and how you ended up taking on that as a project.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Khulia, I was doing my work here in Houston, where I was actually going out and having workshops in my community for families. And like what Khulia was doing, I was doing the same thing. My important thing is there's not voter education out there, and it's not just for the parents itself, but for our young students, that they don't have that information. So when I would have some type of workshop in the community, I always made sure I also talked about the importance of voting and the deadline dates and how to go out and vote, because that information, I'm not saying it's not easy to get to, but a lot of parents don't know where to go, right? And I have to say students don't know either. And that was the biggest thing, was combining both of them. As I had parents and students, come to the workshops, we were engaging and talking about the importance of that. And for National Parents Union, how I came about becoming a delegate is I met our, mom in chief, Carrie Rodriguez, when we had a rally out here to save charter schools here in Houston. And I just saw how she just fired up the community out here. And I was like, I have to know who this lady is and what is she doing, And when I was talking to her, I realized that we had very similar stories, and if you really think about all of us sitting here, we have very similar stories, our backgrounds of why we do what we do. And I was invited to join, the National Parents Union, and I was excited about it. I was like, wow, this is a huge state. This is a big challenge, but I'm taking it on. I'm trying to educate families, encourage them to be involved. And when it comes to Every Family Votes, as a committee, it is so true. It takes, a family to make the change. We can make a difference as families. And putting together this toolkit was so exciting, because now we have a toolkit that we can share with everyone, and everyone can download and use it to share. Like Khulia was mentioning, how do you get in touch with your elected official? How do you have these questions? And another good piece that we are adding actually to the toolkit is social media information. With this COVID, there's so much out there, like, okay, I can't go do this, I can't go do that, but you still can encourage people during your social media and get them to go out and vote, or even just giving out information of how to vote, right, in your own state. And that's what our toolkit does. It has information for the states that you're in. You can go to the link and find out, how to vote, and then spread that information. We also have great images that you can put out in social media that was created by some of our delegates. I mean, this is the important piece of that, is that having all of that information so easy and accessible, right here on your phone, that you can do wherever you're at. And I can keep going. I'm so excited about our toolkit. I could just keep going and going about our toolkit.
Okay. Well, I'm interested in some of the feedback that you're getting from families that are using the toolkit. Are they finding it useful? Are they then using it to contact the candidates or their potential, like the incumbents that are in office and have conversations? Do you see it out there, and have they told you if it's useful or not to them?
I think Khulia was the first one to actually test that out on one of her events, where she downloaded it and was spreading that information at one of her community events. So Khulia, can you share something?
Yeah. And the beautiful part about it is in English and Spanish. So my first community event was at a Latina community event, and I had the toolkit ready, and parents and community members and everybody that was there was just like, wow. And since that time, I've taken it with me in every outreach. I try to have as much information as I can for parents when I do my outreach. I try to make it worth their while they're coming to see me. So being able to actually have somebody with me that's actually registering people to vote. And then I have the toolkit just to say, okay, well, it doesn't stop here. You got to tell your brother, your sister, your cousin, your neighbor, and this is how you do it. And then don't just tell them to vote. In this toolkit is how you can reach out and find out who is running, and then how to engage them, how to talk to them, because that could be intimidating. Like, some people not only just don't know where to go, they don't know where to start. They don't know how to, it's intimidating. You feel like these people are over you linguistically and all types of things. You think they're going to, think you're stupid and saying certain things. You don't know if there's a formality to it. So it gives you, it makes you comfortable enough as a regular person to say, hey, I understand this. I could ask them this, I could ask them that. And they should give me enough information to where I could make a decision on my own as to how I want to proceed.
Right. Yeah. It's tough for people to approach people either running for office, or especially those already in office. They feel a little bit intimidated by that whole process. But, if they only knew the power that citizen voices can have. And, I applaud you, Khulia, for understanding right away that, you're giving people much value when they're coming to see you, and, that added piece for them to take away. I'm sure they appreciate that about your work very much. So they're learning a lot. And, I'd love to hear at the end of this election, what all of your folks have to say about the toolkit and how much it helped them to engage. So let me flip it over to you, Maritza. I'm excited to hear about your work because I'm also Pennsylvania based. So you're in Philadelphia, and what's happening there with you?
Well, you're Pennsylvania. You're in Pennsylvania too. So
I am. Yes.
You know that today is the last day for any resident of Pennsylvania to register to vote. Today is the absolute last day. People that are unsure about their registration status, they can very easily go on vote.org, and it gives a full breakdown. Like I did mine earlier today, and it lets a person know what's their legislative district, what's their senatorial district, their congressional district, what party you're affiliated with, the location of where to go. But even with that, I know for a fact that my location, due to COVID, is closed. So although it does say those things, just do your research ahead of time and vote early. There are several locations in every state where a person can go. It's a one-stop shop. Go register and, fill out your ballot and vote and leave it there and get it done. You can get it done all in one day. There have been locations where there have been lines. One thing that someone reminded me of yesterday, we have a lot of families that have family members that are elderly and that are in nursing homes. And I'm very curious, and rehabilitation centers, and I'm very curious I'm wondering if whether or not whomever there is in charge of any kind of community activities or community advocacy within those facilities, if they're taking the initiative and getting all their residents' ballots together, because where they're residing, that's where they live. If they're in a nursing home, that is their residence. Are they taking the initiative and collecting all these ballots for all of their residents and taking them to the polling locations for them, to the ballot, the election offices for them? I'm hoping that's happening. I'm going to push that out as much as I can to, to everybody that I know as well. If you have a grandmother, grandfather, elderly relative in a nursing home, find out, hey, did you vote? For all of our returning citizens, those people that have, paid their dues and spent some time incarcerated and are no longer on probation or parole, find out within your state, go online, use the toolkit to get the information from your state to see whether or not you're eligible to vote, and please do so. I mean, my other call to arms has been for months now, and unfortunately it's over, was for the census. It just finished last week. So my hope is that people did take advantage of the opportunity to get monies for their communities. This toolkit is not going to end here. We're going to be pushing this, not just for this election, but beyond. There are many local elections that people need to understand about. It's not just about voting for the presidential election.
Right.
It's also for your state. It's also for your city. It's also your mayoral races. It's also for the races for district attorney. It's also for the school board races. I mean, in Philadelphia, unfortunately, our school board is appointed. I don't know of many others that are go through the same situation. Everyone else is it's elected. So parents taking that initiative, even in their schools, your school's council, your school PTA, vote. Just get it out there. Have your families do it. We want this to be something where our children and our grandchildren see that example of us, performing our civic duty, going to the polls and or going to the mailbox or going to the mail-in, drop off ballot box to get it done. We want to show them that you can do it. You can make a choice of who you want to lead you and make those people accountable.
That's so
wow.
So
Yeah,
true.
that's so important, Maritza. And, I think back to some of the work that I've done in prior elections, knocking door to door, which obviously we can't do this year, and doing that regular good old fashioned outreach. And I think about the elderly folks that were not voting because they didn't know that they could get an absentee ballot, or in our case this year, a mail-in ballot. Now, it's hard to imagine with all of the promotion about mail-in ballots that anybody doesn't know that it can happen this year. But just like your toolkit is trying to address, some people just don't have the know-how. And then there are the folks that are living in nursing homes and away from all of that information that's just cycling through to us, and they need somebody to help them. So it's something that I hadn't really thought about again this election, but in previous months, I talked to many people who just didn't know how to do it, and they need a little help. So we have to reach out and we have to help the people that need that information. And the other thing I like about what you said is the this toolkit that you've created is such an amazing resource that now we're not going to just stop after the election, right? We're going to keep teaching people how to engage, because part of this is not just electing those people, but also then holding those people accountable for what they've promised and for delivering to families and communities, right? So we have to continue to teach people how to engage to make sure that happens. How will you be doing that, in your local community?
Oh gosh, if I could take that once it's safer. I mean, hopefully when things die down with the increase of COVID cases and we're able to, Khulia, my hat's off to her because she's out there. She's out there daily, multiple times weekly. Here in Philadelphia is still very much considered an area that is a hot zone, in my opinion. So as soon as they make it safer for us to interact out in the community, I'm gonna be out there with my tent, with my table, with my flyers, with my information. In each and every community family event that's out across the city and beyond, outside of the city, just to make sure people understand who we are and what we're about, and how we're not asking them for anything but their support and their voice, because word of mouth is the biggest thing. We're out here on all our different platforms, letting people know who we are, what we do, what we hope to accomplish. I mean, that Parent Bill of Rights, when people see that, that encourages them, and that lets them know that they at least have some information that they can then go back to their school and advocate for their own children and other people's children at their home school. That's what we're hoping for, that the more families get involved, the more we will grow and the more support everyone that needs it will have.
Right. And that's key for
from,
voting.
From the trying to make sure that I was just saying that I try to make sure that, as you said, we can't knock on doors, but I could lit drop. So what I've done is I've made sure I've lit dropped a one pager of the toolkit to in neighborhoods that I know aren't, are suffering from the information gap. So there's ways that we can still, reach as many people as we can, and making sure that we are holding folks accountable after the election. I am one for making sure that people are held accountable, and making sure there's people showing up with me to make sure that we hold them accountable.
That is very true, because we have a QR code that one of our committee members had created, Tashfir. And she did a great job where if you're not able to go, here or there, but you're talking to someone, you go to your phone, you pull up that QR code, and it'll take you, to our pledge, because we're asking people to pledge with National Parents Union that you are going to go out and vote. But it also will have information as well where we can show our website where you can go and download our toolkit. I mean, we're making it so easy for everybody to go do this information. I know with me here in Texas or in Houston, it's a little bit different. They're barely starting to open up things where we're not able to do a lot of things in person. But I'm still able to text people. I'm still able to email people. I'm still able to send that information, pushing it out, pushing the QR code, pledge with me, pledge with National Parents Union. This is the work that we're doing. I show our website. I tell them about exactly what Maritza was saying, our Bill of Rights, and our polls that we've been actually conducting for families all across the nation to talk about, what their issues are when it comes to our kids' education. I mean, this is everything. And these are, all of us here, we are parents and we are education advocates that have come together. And so we want everybody to actually join us in this fight, because we can't do it alone. We need everyone.
Right. Absolutely. And Wendy, you were just talking a minute there about, showing people how to do things. And in every state, there are different ways that people can vote. And those ways have changed this year because of COVID. Some places that once had electronic ballots now don't. Some places that, like we mentioned earlier, are polling places. Some of them have shut down, and we have to be cognizant of those things. But there's something particularly interesting happening in Houston. Would you like to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so besides knowing your polling locations that have changed, research that information, excuse me, we have what we call drive-through voting, DTV. And everybody, this is new for us, for my county, which is Harris County. It was created in the wake of COVID during this pandemic to have more people to come out and vote, but also social distancing. So all the voters can go to a polling location, and we have it on votetexas.org or even Harris County website, where we have a map and it shows you the drive-through voting. You go up, you drive through, you're handed a portable voting machine to your window, and you're able to vote. And you can have multiple people with you in your car. This is what I love about it. It's in the comfort of your own car. So I'm going to have my niece, my mom, everybody that's registered. We're going to go up there. We're going to go to the polling place, and we're going to try this out because this is new for us. But I think it's great that our county really did push to get out that vote and have these drive-through voting locations for people to do it if they don't choose to, able to go in person. I know my mom was worried about it because she's 65 and older, so she didn't want to go to the polling unit. But when I told her about this, she's ready to jump in my car and ready to go, as well as getting my niece to come out, because this will be her first time voting. So I think this is really good to know all of your information in your state of what changes. And some of these are really good changes for us to go out and vote.
Yeah. And I hope that some of these changes stay. When COVID has passed, leave these things in place, because it gives a lot of options to people about how to use their voice and how to vote and engage in the process that maybe were lacking before. And we could have used some options other than just showing up at this one particular place at one particular time. it's nice to be able to make decisions for ourselves
Yeah,
about how we're going to do that.
It's really great. I wanted to add to that in our toolkit, we do have a link that tells you about each state. Know the types of IDs that you need to bring with you. That has changed. I know in the state of Texas, that's changed here. Actually, it's more like you can have, not just your passport or ID. We can have a current utility bill. We can have a certified birth certificate. We can have a bank statement. That's all new. We've never had that before. So we encourage everybody to go to our toolkit, click on that link, and go on there and see what changes have been made in your state, because they're trying to make it so easy for everybody to go out and vote.
And something that we're doing along with this broadcast every day is that we are sending out an action, an email every morning. And it's also something that can be found over on our Voice to Action site, that we're just asking people to do some simple tasks each day to get ready for the election and get educated and find out. And today was simply just finding out about your ballot and who's on that ballot, and really digging in there and doing some of that work that you ladies are already doing with your voter toolkit. And it's so important that people are educated about who's there, especially when it's driving down to the down ballot and the local races. It's really tough to find information on some of those people. And many of the larger sites don't really have a lot for us to go off of about what their positions are. So I guess I'll ask each of you, when we're talking to those local positions, what is it that our families and our parents need from our local politicians right now?
Oh my gosh, if I can start, I know one very big thing that's happening, especially in the city of Philadelphia. A lot of our local politicians are being asked, "What are you going to do about violence in the city?" In the city of Philadelphia, we've already surpassed where we were last year with the violence, and the rate of homicides in the city hasn't been this high in over a decade. We're considered now the murder capital of the country, which is very sad. And that's one of the higher, education, of course, is something that I'm always going to question. What are your views? What are you going to do? What about our fair funding formula for the state of Pennsylvania? But what are you going to do about the crime? Because now it's not only the deficit in education, the digital divide, it's the safety of our entire families when we're walking outside our doors. So that is something that has really been on the minds of many people, and will continue to do so until things change. And all these people that are currently in office need to be held accountable and held to task for providing some kind of solution and resolutions to make change, to help reduce the amount of violence we're experiencing now in the city of Philadelphia.
Wow, that is something. I went to college in the city, and was very aware of the violence that happened around me way back when. And it's still very clear that a lot of parents in Pennsylvania and beyond, one of their top concerns about education today is the safety of kids in the schools and communities around the schools. And they're worried about the violence that needs to be addressed, that could hurt them physically, not to mention the myriad of issues that we have to deal with that can hurt kids in other ways. So that's so important. So somebody's got to deal with that. Wendy, anything in particular that you think parents and families really need from those local officials right now?
I mean, I think it's mirrored to what Maritza is saying. It's where here in Houston, we had, George Floyd is from Houston, and we had our march here and, protesting about that. I think, and not just that, it's our schools, the school safety. We have the I Am Vanessa bill that everybody was pushing for military to, so there's so many things out here that it's what's important to you and your community, and what's happening is asking those elected officials, where do you stand? What are your views on this? What are you going to do? Whether they're running for office and they're going to be elected, what are you going to do once you're elected? It's here we have those conversations, and I push that with families, is ask those elected officials to push on about these important issues that mean a lot to us, whether it's just locally or whether it's statewide, right? Because it affects us here a lot in Texas with so many different things, especially with, schools reopening. Parents are, dealing with a lot of new things, and they're like, what can we do to change this? Well, start talking to your elected officials and ask them that. you know, and then even encouraging families, because I've had some families who can't go out and vote. My mom was one of them. She couldn't vote. She wasn't a registered voter because she wasn't a U.S. citizen at the time. Encouraging those families to say, guess what? You can invite an elected official to your child's school and say, we're going to have a discussion and talk about how are you going to help our kids' school? What changes will you help us? These are the bills, you know, what bills are coming up? Those are the things that I always encourage to ask those questions is what's coming up, unless our legislation session is coming up this January for Texas because we meet every other year. And it's time to really start asking these questions and knowing where they stand, and especially ones that are running for office right now and school boards as well. Start pushing on those as well. You know, what are you going to do to help change for our kids' school? So it's kind of hard to just focus on one particular thing here, but it's pushing your elected officials and asking those important questions. And just say, I'm watching and I'm listening to you because I'm your constituent. And that's one of the things that I always tell everybody. I am your constituent. I've gotten to know my elected official and he loves it, actually all of them, because I come out there, okay, what's your issues this year? What are you focusing on? What are you going to do to change these things? And I've seen the changes. So I encourage everybody, please go out and talk to your elected officials.
Right. And, you know, they don't know what you care about unless you're willing to tell them. And you've got to be willing to stand there and say, hey, you know, this is me. I'm watching you. Here are my issues. And to call them to the carpet. Like we talked earlier about accountability. You have to call them on it if they're not doing what they said they would do. And be persistent and diligent about it, and
support them too if it's something that you know you believe in. You can support them as well. It's not always something
absolutely
good.
Yeah, we hope, right? We get good people in there. We have a lot of things to support if we get our good people in there. Khulia, do you want to weigh in on that one?
Yeah, so I mean, Minnesota has one of the worst disparities across the board. So every Black person and Native American person and Latina person is worried about everything: housing, employment, violence in the street, police brutality. You know, George Floyd just got murdered here, so we're worried about everything. But when it comes to education, more like locally, where parents are having childcare issues and educational support issues, I've had a parent so eloquently put it that we are forced to choose between either being a good worker and a bad parent, or a good parent and a bad worker. I just was like, wow, I could have put it more simpler and better than that. She was just discussing how, you know, her daughter's behind. You know, she's working at home, but when she's working, she actually has to be on the phone because she's doing customer service. And then her daughter needs support, but she doesn't have anybody to support. I've had a woman just tell me she had to quit her job in order to make sure that her child was supported through distance learning. So childcare and educational support is the main, especially for special education children, and then the families who have speak another language at home. Those families are really struggling. And then now I'm hearing that the childcare that is being provided for the essential workers doesn't have any educational support. It's no more than a daycare center. So those families aren't even getting the structure and the support that they need to increase the gaps, which Minnesota has one of the worst academic outcomes for Native American and Black children in the whole country. So parents are mad, they're hurting, they're struggling, and they are ready to cast them ballots. And I suggest them candidates better listen and do something.
Wonderful. Yeah. And you know what? We have a short video that we can highlight a few other parents and their ideas about why every family should vote. So if we could pull that video up. It looks like the audio isn't playing on the video. All right. So we had some folks saying that the audio wasn't available to them on the video. Is that true for all you ladies too? All right,
Yes.
let's.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, we had a little technical difficulty there. So if we could try to cue that back up again and see if we can get the audio. But until then, I think we could just say, just real broadly, what happens when every family votes?
Oh my gosh.
Change happens.
Yeah,
Yes.
Start
think
seeing
about
some
that.
action.
Perfect world, everybody is going to go out, everybody is going to vote, but they're not going to vote just because people say vote, and they're not going to vote by party line. They're going to vote educated. They're going to find out about their candidates. And in a dream world, what happens?
Oh my gosh. The appropriate people are put in place to help us make things better.
Yeah,
That's-
to represent our families, our communities, who will be our voice for us. Change. I mean, this is what we want to see.
And hopefully, if they truly represent us, they are going to make that transformative change and not the bit by the status quo change where it takes 10, 20 years before we see change. Hopefully we put people in power and enough of us actually votes and they actually get in there and they actually do what they say they're going to do. And we could actually see some results when it comes to all the disparities that exist. I mean, up and down the ticket in education, you talk about disparities just in that system alone, special education, academic outcomes, suspensions, teacher diversity. I mean, there's so much within that system. And then there's, housing and employment and politics. There's just so much. So if we really truly put people in there that are like-minded and they truly sit at, there's enough of them, there's not just one and there's 7 status quoers to the one, transformative person, that's not going to work.
Right. Yeah. All right. It looks like we have our video back up. Let's take a listen.
I'm Maritza from San Diego, California.
Hello, my name is Wendy. Pennsylvania Delegate for National. Hi, my name is Wendy, and I'm with the National Parent Union.
Hi, this is Tim from the National Parents Union and father of Max and Dylan.
Hi, this is Terry Rodriguez, and I'm the president of the National Parent Union. We are considering a national vote, and that's why this is why this family votes. We vote for our president. Vote for.
My family votes to honor my 4 grandparents who came to this country to create a better life for themselves and for their future generations.
I want my children to grow up in a country where they have the opportunity to be successful, to be safe, and to lead the lives that they deserve.
Given what's happened over the past 4 years, I'm feeling the urgency to step up and do my part this year more than I ever have before, because my kids can't wait.
We vote because our ancestors
died for the right for us to be able to vote.
I never used to vote.
At first, I didn't vote because I didn't think my vote mattered. And honestly, I really didn't think one vote can make a difference.
Not because I didn't see it as a fundamental right, but I never saw a real change. And I felt like voting was useless. But then I started realizing how many policies
that we want in place so that we can give our children the lives that they deserve
were changed on a regular basis that impacted our children around education.
And education and immigration laws for our Black and Brown families.
Whether it comes to our economic conditions, what's happening in our communities, what's happening with immigration, in our education system, all over this country, families need to come together and make sure their voices and their priorities are heard.
In our local, state, and federal elections, we want to make sure that our voices are being heard. In our local elections, we want to make sure that the people we vote in are from the community and know how to solve the problems of our community.
But I make sure I know the right dates. Do you know what dates are important in your city, in your state, to vote?
Started to teach and empower my kids and people in my community that it's our right, it's our privilege to vote,
to have our voices heard from our communities.
On our state level, we want to make sure that the people we vote in have the best interests at heart of the families of the entire state, and they're making sure that the state gets what we need.
We've gone through 4 years right now of uncertainty and fear. That's not the kind of lives I want my children to grow up with. I want them to grow up secure and safe.
Together, we can solve problems and solutions by voting the people who will represent us.
I started meeting with legislators and finding out what they do and what their beliefs are around our brown and Black children.
On a federal level, we want to make sure that the person we're voting in as the President of the United States is there for all the people, all the citizens of the United States of America.
My family votes because our vote is our voice. Our vote is change. Our vote is protection. Our vote is strength. And our vote is power.
By exercising our right to vote at the ballot box. In 2020, we have an unprecedented opportunity to send a strong message to all of our elected officials that the priorities of parents are going to be heard and are going to be listened to by making sure we show up at the polls.
We have elections coming up this year. Absentee ballots should be submitted as soon as possible.
And this is why.
This is why.
And for those reasons,
that's why.
Know your right.
This family is going to vote.
This family votes.
This family votes.
Our family votes.
Vote.
My family will always vote.
Please join us, the National Parents Union, in our campaign for every family votes. Thank you.
For more stories like this, go to www.nationalparentsunion.org.
It's such a powerful video to hear everybody talking about why, why they're getting out there this year, and especially some of the changes that I heard people talking about of realizing the power of their vote and their voice. And Wendy, you were one of those on the video that mentioned early on that you didn't always think that voting had a point. Can you talk a little bit about that transition for you and how you got there? I'm sure there's people out there listening now or watching along that maybe feel the same way, feel that they're looking at a lot of history of that status quo change where they're not seeing anything happen fast enough and they're not inspired. And they say, my vote doesn't count. Why should, what would you tell them about your own change?
I mean, when having a father that was very active in voting and making sure everybody vote, I wasn't one that followed him in the beginning. I really didn't see that change. I really did feel like one vote could, matter. It wasn't until my kids were in school and I saw a lot of things that I can actually have a voice on to make change. And like the school board and even education bills, I didn't even know I could. And I realized I have a right. It's my by the majority. And this is where I tell people, especially because here in Texas and especially in Houston, we have, we're very diverse and a lot of immigrants. And there's like, well, I can't vote. But no, you can talk to your mom, your dad, your tias, your tios, your comadre, your next door neighbor, and encourage them and those who can vote, even your own kid who turns 18 years old that can vote, and get them prepared on how to do that and how they can make change. My niece was one of them. She didn't understand until she started coming with me to my workshops, and she started realizing I can make a difference at my age. And I'm like, yes, you can. And you're going to vote the people in that will represent us and that will make sure that they stay representing us and listen to us and making sure that they pass the things that we need for our community, what we need as, as our city as well and our state. And so I always encourage people to do that. And that's where it changed for me. It's, making that change. And I saw that in my kids, school. We can make that change when it comes to that, no matter how old you are.
Absolutely. And we have to reach our young people, our young people, our children in high school that are going to be getting close to that age where they can then register. And if many states they're able to register prior to turning 18, many states at 17, they can go ahead and register for the upcoming elections or for next year's elections as they come.
Yeah.
We have to reach our young people at every platform, every stage. The millennials really, we have to reach them too. They may think a little bit differently, talk a little bit differently, prefer TikTok, but hey, if TikTok is what it's going to take for them to say, you know what, I need to register and tell my friends to also do it and then go ahead and vote. Have a voting party, have a voting Black party, socially distance, of course. You know, I've said it before, just do it. Anything that needs to happen. Everybody out there that's, you know, getting together to watch NFL football going on right now. Hey, ask everybody in your party. Ask everybody that comes over to watch. Did you register? Let's take care of this. Let's get this done. We have to, we all have a job to do.
And then also notice, like, do you know what's on your ballot? Y'all ready to, you know, take a pledge with me? You know, take a pledge so that we can all vote together before that football game starts.
Absolutely.
And actually have that conversation with them.
Oh, you know, that's a wonderful way to bring everybody together and to really kind of, we're talking about holding the people around us too accountable for, you know, being a part of the change and being a part of the work that we're all doing to make the world a better place. And it's so great to hear that it's filtering down to kids. I spent a lot of time in Khulia, I bet you did too, as a social studies teacher. I spent a lot of time working on civics education with kids and civic participation with kids. So it's nice to, it's really great to see so many young people active and engaged right now. And for the work that we're doing to be filtering down to them and to make them right from the get-go, be ready to step into the shoes and take over the fight. And keep working to make their communities better places, their schools better places. And then, you know, that can filter from the bottom up rather than from the top down. You know, that's where we really need to make the difference, right? All right. So, you know, we're getting close.
That's why it's bottom up.
That's right. Yeah. And you know, too often we think about it top down. And we need to start thinking about it the opposite direction, the bottom up, and forcing you know, the good work up to the top and hoping the change will bubble up
And then
and
even
bubble up quick.
wear swag where people can question, you know, what are you wearing? Like, you know, wear a mask, you know, that talks about voting. Wear a shirt that, you know, what we're wearing. So we're like I've had people ask me, every family votes, what does that mean? And you start going into that, you know, voter education, whether you're in a line at the grocery store, at the gas station, people are going to question that. So, you know, wear your swag. In fact, you can go to our National Parents Union, you know, and buy some swag, or you can get people talking.
That is perfect. Perfect. And you know that the mask has become a fashion accessory these days, and people are looking at what you've got there, and they will ask questions. So yes, take every opportunity. And so for me, for those of us at Brightbeam, for those of us out here watching, what are your parting words for us? What can we do to help in these last couple of weeks to help get people educated and to help get out the vote, especially the local vote?
Go through your phone, book in your phone.
Well, download
everybody a text.
Download our toolkit. And you don't have to have, you know, I'm holding candidate forums, but host the candidate forum with just your family.
Right.
You know, however many of you guys are for you, your friends, get on your Zoom. Zoom is now the thing. It's the in thing now. So get on your Zoom, get on your group chats, get together, and then get to hold your own candidate forums. Invite the candidates, let them know, hey, it's the four of us. We want to, you know, see if you'll join our Zoom call, or maybe just on your Zoom call, you guys ask questions or write down the questions and you send them to the candidates and have them respond to you. Tell them that you got, you know, you need their phone number, text them, do whatever you can, however you can. It doesn't have to be a big hosted event. It could just be you and 3 other people getting together and getting informed and getting others informed.
That is so true. I
And
mean,
use our toolkit to do it.
The toolkit is easy. I have what we call a comadre happy hour, where it's my girlfriends. There's only like 6 of us, but those 6 people can still go talk to other 6 people, and so forth and so forth. So no matter how small or big your group is, you can still have that conversation, still invite elected officials, because nowadays with this new COVID, you can make all kinds of changes to where you can invite that elected official to your Zoom call. Like, look, these 6 people happen to be also your constituents and they want to hear where you stand. I mean, those are the things to invite them to come on there and encourage them and show the toolkit and encourage the young folks, the young adults, young students. college students to really do the same as well. My son, actually, my youngest, he registered early so that when he was 18, he would get a reminder to register to vote. Go do that. Encourage the young, your kids, your cousins' kids, that they have that right, that they can do that as much as you can educate them. And our toolkit can give you as much information that you need to get out that vote.
And if you're going in person, don't go by yourself. Grab your neighbors. Grab everybody that's in the same ward as you. Hey, let's go together. Let's go meet down there. That way you can support each other. If there's lines, if you have elderly neighbors or elderly relatives, take a chair for them, take water, take a snack, be ready to stand in that line. And if the only thing you do as far as your form of protest at the nonsense that's going on right now, let it be that you take 5 people with you or more to go vote with you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, ladies, so much for coming here today and talking about your great work. I mean, from Pennsylvania to Texas to Minneapolis, like we just, you're all covering so many different areas and doing such critical work for kids and communities that I'll thank you so much on behalf of everyone, because I'm just enamored with each of you, and keep up the good fight. And does any, and I'll be watching, and I hope that you'll join us for the rest of the week. We have a lot of great programming coming up to help you do your job and to help people get educated and get out there to vote. And I will be there on November 3rd, voting, of course. I chose to do it in person this year, in spite of COVID, since I live in a rural community. But I'll be there with you and getting out the vote as well. So best wishes to each of you and all of your work from here forward. And again, thank you so much for being here today with us and taking part in our week of action.
No, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Actually, come pledge and vote with us. Pledge on our website.
Absolutely.